this looks good.
Oh my god, this is delicious.
I definitely want to taste that.
All right, and now it's time for our plate of the day. So, Going Green, a conversation around the generational relationship with weed in Black and brown communities. It's a huge thing. I will say off the bat, in my family, weed is a big no-no.
Same.
They are very anti-marijuana. I'm not gonna shout out people. There are people in the family who do indulge. I will shout myself out because, okay, mommy, you already know. It's fine. Like, I do use marijuana, and it is very controversial. It is like literally so shameful that they don't talk about it. Like, it's almost like they will like give me a stare. Actually, at the Super Bowl, like, I saw my mom trying to whiff and smell my hair.
I've literally never seen your mother get that affectionate towards you. I've never seen her get that affectionate towards you.
She was like, oh yeah, my daughter landed her whole nose right on my head and took a deep breath, and I'm like, bitch, you not low. Like, why are you trying to smell?
Like, laid on you too, like low-key laid on you, and I was like, I've never seen Eva act this way.
And I was just like, damn, Ma, all right. Like, don't make me feel guilty. I shouldn't feel guilty about this. This is something I do. So I suffer from some really fucking serious anxiety. Like, some very, very serious anxiety. And, you know, I used to be a kid who was like, don't do drugs. Weed is going to kill us all. And, like, had all these misconceptions because I totally bought into DARE and all those programs and stuff. And then, like, in high school, it was like a fun thing. And then in adulthood, when I picked it back up, because there was a time period where I just didn't smoke. But when I picked it back up, I started to become a little bit more aware about how I can use it in a more meaningful way than just to be stoned. And so that's really the relationship that I've developed. I've tried CBD. I have yet to have a CBD product that I feel like is making any effect. And I don't know why that is, but I'm not I'm not giving up on CBD. I'm just like really looking to get some recommendations that are things that will help, and I don't know if it's because I smoke a lot of weed.
Well, a few things with regards to the CBD. There's a lot of noise in the CBD industry right now. You can find it at the bodega, you can find it at the 7-Eleven,
right.
And then you have like the higher end retail brick and mortars.
Right.
So yeah, you have to navigate a little bit to find the brands that actually make quality product. But in an emerging market, this is what happens. Everybody like has their startups, and then the ones that stick.
Yeah.
If you want to try CBD, it's actually potent enough. That's usually what the issue is. When they started coming out with CBD products, they weren't potent enough. They were infusing it similarly to what THC levels would be. So like, any stoner, if they eat an edible, would probably tell you 10 to 15 to 20 milligrams is what'll get you going. 20 milligrams of CBD isn't going to do shit. You need to multiply that by like 10. So like 200 milligrams or something. Or else you won't feel anything.
That's good to know, because I feel like I've always, in my consumption of CBD, have been measuring the milligrams as THC, where I'm like, all right. Yeah, and for me, usually edible-wise, it takes me anywhere from 20 to 30 to really like get high. But I've always been weary because I'm like, fuck, one day I'm going to do too much CBD and it's going to hit me and I'm going to be like, oh, fuck,
Yeah. Actually, if you want to try quality CBD, I have my friends, Steve and Wasim. They run a CBD retail in New York called Comeback Daily.
Ooh. Ah, that's on 59th Street, right?
So they have one on 59th Street at the Turnstile. They have one in the East Village.
Nice.
And they opened one up in Soho right off of Canal. Also POC owned and operated.
Oh,
so
that's
just go give them some support.
That.
They have like a discovery bar, so you can try all different brands of tinctures to find the one that's right for you. And they also do cool programming. One of our Medley team members is hosting a CBD yoga class at one of their locations tomorrow night. And that's going to be taking place the first Thursday of every month.
Okay.
Lit.
That's actually really lit, and I definitely would want to attend that. Though I am terrible at yoga, I am willing to try it with CBD.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a little bit about what were some of the misconceptions around marijuana that you both heard while you were growing up?
I feel like for me, the biggest one would probably be that and I don't know, I consider this not to be true. Maybe you guys can correct me if it is true, that it's a gateway drug to like literally everything else. So like if you were going to smoke weed, then like you were automatically going to want to do cocaine and crack and like all that
Not
other
yet.
shit.
It hasn't happened to me yet.
Yeah, that was one of the old ones. That's not something that like my parents instilled in me, but I guess one of the misconceptions was that it was addictive.
Yep.
Not really. I mean, people do become chronic smokers, but I wouldn't describe it as an addiction.
Right.
I don't know. Most of the misconceptions now, and the fear surrounding it has everything to do with the fact that it was a criminalized commodity, and people had to acquire it through illicit markets. And when you're engaging with illicit markets, it's not really the case anymore in New York today. But if you're engaging with illicit markets with other drugs,
Right.
you just have that much more of a closer proximity to the possibility of violent encounters.
Yes.
And that's what the gateway is. And that's what the danger is. And so when I started smoking weed, or I'm sure kids all over America start smoking weed, their parents are worried that they're going to like start going down the trodden road or whatever. That's usually the fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I'm a stoner. My brother's a stoner. My brother and I are very different people. And I think, at least in my mother's eyes, we've finally proven to her that weed doesn't make you lazy.
Yeah.
If you're lazy, you're lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was another misconception.
Yeah.
But one cool thing that I did learn is, you think of that old Dare commercial with the girl that deflated
Yes,
into the
who's
couch.
flat.
Yes,
It's a
you
clown.
literally, once you said the lazy thing, I thought of the deflated girl. on the
Yeah,
couch.
so what I believe that is you have so much more research going on around cannabis and all the other cannabinoids that you can find in the plant. And what they found was that cannabis doesn't necessarily go stale, but some of the THC molecules will change after a certain amount of time. And so what happens with the THC, if you leave it out for long enough, I'm not sure how long, weeks, months maybe, the THC will turn into THCV? I forget the molecule. That's what makes people lethargic and sleepy and lazy and all that stuff. And so I can imagine 20, 30, 40 years ago when you had a less robust productive sector for this industry. I mean, everybody had like 2-month-old weed.
Right.
And like nowadays, as everybody can attest, the stuff is way stronger and fresher and all of those things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I also always feel bad about like when we're talking about like, I guess not misconceptions, but like the treatment of people who were the first people to be like pot smokers. Like I feel like my cousins who indulged and like were unapologetic about it were like ostracized.
Yeah.
And they still kind of have like, just kind of like a certain type of attitude or approach that is given towards them when it comes to just that type of stuff.
Right, because you are that cousin. Like,
Yeah.
don't hang out with that cousin. That's the cousin that smokes weed. You smell that shit on them. It's like it becomes this like whole like you have a fucking monster on your back that's gonna like bite them. And I wonder around like what spaces exist right now that are able to do the work to educate not just us in our generation, but the generations after us. Because I think about medical marijuana, for example, and I think about even my parents and they, chronic arthritis, like all these different things that I can then, read an article and hear how there's, medical marijuana or something that's THC infused that can help with these things. And I'm like, I don't even think I could get my dad to work with a CBD tincture or anything. Like, I don't think that I could change their mind because the stigma is so strong. So are there any organizations or places where are educating sort of in that space for that generations? Or what are some ways in which you think the Latinx community could really benefit from sort of refocusing the way in which they view marijuana as a tool or a drug or whatever?
I mean, it's difficult when you talk about Latinos because they're certainly not a monolith.
Right.
And if you're talking about the effects of the war on drugs in the past, the U.S. had, they had their fingers in the whole honeypot of Latin America, and they had very similar but differing results in each country. And I think that trauma definitely came with our families when they came over here. I don't know. I think, our older family members are some of the people that can most benefit from what's happening in this industry. And I've spoken to a couple of brown kids who are in the industry, and they tell me that the way to get them on board is through CBD. And like, I'm like so tired of hearing the word destigmatizing, but it's because I'm so in it. I just assume that everybody's okay with it now, but it's really not the case. And so CBD is not the same word as marijuana.
Right.
As you see the above board industry maturing more, it's that aura of legitimacy in an above board market that's
Right.
going to make them less afraid.
Yeah.
But then you also have, the issue of like whether they're Afro-Latinos or if you have mixed status families. Those are the things that really scare them. So I think, the change is happening piecemeal. There are people trying to retroactively undo the harms of the war on drugs. There are other people trying to make sure that the people that are not in jail actually have a foot into the industry that's forming right now. And those are two different projects.
Right.
So our team is all QPOC. Am I the only Spanish-speaking one? No, I'm not. But we're not all Latinos. We're like a mixed bag of brown New Yorkers. I have been wanting to start creating content specifically for Latinos for that very same reason, because their relationship tends to be really fraught. Or it's a relationship that's simply about recreational consumption.
Right.
Which is fine, but I think that there's so much more information and utility that could be used out of it for people who can't afford to engage with, the traditional healthcare apparatus.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will never forget the moment. So I went to Colorado like the week after all the shops had opened officially and everything was going on. And I remember, and it was actually unintentional, like the trip was for something else, but the timing was like just right. And I remember sort of like walking into the shop and it was a really surreal experience to see, very curated, like, behind the glass. It was so pretty in there and like everything was so bright. And I was just like, wow, like what, like this is what normalization. It was such a shock to see it in such a like just normal, like, matter of fact, you give your ID, they're like, great, you're old enough to be in here, awesome, come on in, like everybody's chill. Good.
Did you spend a lot of money?
I did spend a lot of money
Was it
that
expensive?
first time. It was expensive, and then the tax, I forget what the tax percentage was, but the tax percentage was high. But I do remember that so I bought an eighth, and the eighth was a lot cheaper like before tax than in New York. So I was like lit. But then after taxes it was about the same. But then I wasn't mad because I was like, all right, well, it's not like I'm paying more than I would usually pay for bud. It's just that the tax portion, it's really gonna kill the price point. But since that moment, like I've seen and read articles around how Colorado has been able to repurpose those tax dollars and really and you'll be driving and it'll be like this highway sponsored by Green, I forget the name of the company,
By weed.
right? And it's just like all of these like different weed companies that are like doing shit and like in the education system. There's money that's going from the marijuana industry straight to our education system, and it's like kind of like, yeah, man, just let people fucking smoke their weed, whether medical or recreational. Like definitely let's have conversations about responsibility and stuff, especially if we have like young kids like who are smoking and who might not be doing it responsibly.
Yeah.
But also like then let's also not just demonize it, and let's have these conversations with all of the generations, because like you said, I do think there's a way in which there's a missed opportunity on how we can utilize marijuana past just saying, oh, I love being stoned. Like, or I want to do this high, or I want to do that high. Like, it's more than just being high, but we never really had a chance or a sort of like age of opportunity to really dig into those sectors. So it's exciting. It's really exciting for me. Speaking of all of this, legalization. So what are, like, we talked a little bit about Bernie Sanders talking about how he wants to legalize it in all 50 states. What are some of the things that could come out of this that will be great? And what are some of the ways in which this might affect communities who are currently operating sort of outside of a legal realm of dealing marijuana, growing, or being in that space?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that works in a black market around a commodity that is about to be legalized I try to be realistic about what people in power want and who they actually want to include. A lot of people are going to be left out. If you're in the black market and you're not preparing, you haven't tried to switch your business model from a black market model into one that can actually be an above board business, it's not going to work out for you. If you don't know the people that are making the laws, it's probably not going to work out for you if you're expecting to get distribution licenses, things like that. That said, there are people like black and brown folks that are doing that work, and I think that they have a really good chance to be represented in New York in the licensing landscape once that hits. However, the way rec has been deployed in California and Chicago has been a mess on other fronts, and that's why New York has sort of dragged their feet because they haven't tried to figure out like the tax regime with the social equity stuff, with the licensing stuff. It's a lot of different moving pieces in the largest marketplace in the world.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be like an avalanche of opportunity. I can't say with any confidence what's gonna happen.
Right.
Again, because it's an election year. It's probably
So
some
we don't
crazy
know.
shit. It's gonna probably be some crazy shit. But I imagine that Cuomo, at least in New York State, will be provisioning for a commercial market in New York at some point this year. Probably April, I think, is when it is. But even if that happens, that doesn't mean that we're going to have dispensaries until like January 2021 or something like that.
Right. Which is similar to what happened to, when it happened in Washington and Colorado. It wasn't like the day it was ready, everybody was like, doors open, let's go. Like it was a process.
But what's cool now is you have like this liminal gray area space where not just us, but there are people in New York now really playing with programming right now.
Yeah.
Like before there's a regulatory framework, people are doing some really cool shit with consumption programming that doesn't necessarily have an event geared around like the consumption of alcohol, which is like what most of New York does anyway.
Right. And I wonder about, like, even when talking about the taxes, I'm like, damn, like, I think about the dealers I know, and I'm like, damn, I hope Brody makes it. Like, I hope that, if this happens, like, he'll be good, because, like, I buy from him because I'm trying to hold him down. I know his situation.
Yeah, tell your boy, take another look at your margins, boo.
Yeah. And so, like, what are some of the, like key tips around, like, if someone's like, I hear you, Zulai, I'm going to get serious, so what I got to do now? Getting serious about really shaping their space in the industry.
I mean, it depends what they want to do.
Let's say if I live in the South Bronx and I want to open, I guess, maybe a dispensary, or even better, I see a lot of people who do edibles via Instagram, like, and they have like these, and like, so what are the licenses? You said something about distribution licenses. What are the different pieces outside of like, okay, you get a brick and mortar and like the process of that?
So, yeah, I mean, that's the other fun thing where you have like the emerging technologies of Silicon Valley being merged with like an emerging industry of cannabis, and they're both evolving at a really rapid pace. You're going to see dispensaries, you're going to see delivery services, you're going to see fucking vending machines.
I was wondering, I was like, where we're vending.
You're probably going to see like really curated things, kind of like Cafe Amsterdam style.
Yes.
Because I think Cuomo was searching around to find places to give them consumption licenses. I imagine it'll look something like a cigar bar or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Or a hookah bar or some shit like that.
Listen.
Or even just maybe even licenses to hold events. Wouldn't even necessarily be married to a specific space. Then there are like other practitioners that'll be allowed to work with cannabis but aren't necessarily purveyors. I think that'll probably be the biggest opportunity for people here, just because opening a dispensary in New York is going to cost you millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Nobody small is going to be able to do that in New York. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not it. And then after that, it's all like ancillary industries, branding, graphic design, marketing, original content, things like that.
Right. That'll.
It's the cultural aspect part.
Yeah.
Where there will be the biggest opportunity, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so dope. And like, I do think like it's speaking to sort of like the branding of it. What I do love about the way people can sort of own their niches around the marijuana space is like, yeah, there's like there's an IG account that I follow that's like for women who smoke, right? Is what it's called, right? And so like even just sometimes seeing a picture of a dope ass chick like smoking a joint, like there's something about it because it, like I said, at least in my experience, it still is so demonized that, you know, it makes it sort of like taboo in a way, but also like I want to sort of be able to prove, as you said, like, yo, I can still be the incredible successful person I am and do this. In fact, like, whoever listens to this, there's probably a lot of people who are going to find out for the first time that I even smoke weed right now.
Really?
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, and this is something that I felt like I couldn't talk about ever, and worrying about like losing jobs and stuff like that, and it is just such an unnecessary thing. This is what keeps me sane. You like Julissa, you like functional, productive, creative Julissa. I need to smoke a joint every once in a while.
Yeah, people get surprised when they find out that stoners are productive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite things is when you're in like a room of people or you're introducing yourself to a new group and you don't know yet, but you always find the stoner. And I don't know what that magic is, but there's always a moment where like, I feel like there's an energy where you're both sort of like dancing around each other. It's like your spirits are like, pot buddy, and you're like around, and then you have that first like L with them or however the fuck you smoke. And it's just such a like bonding moment. And I think that the culture around, you know, potheads, like it is stigmatized. There's a lot of stereotypes, but at the core of it, I think are just really chill people who just want to just like chill, like that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, as a brown queer, I'm way into weed bonding more than trauma bonding.
Yes.
So.
I love it. All right, Zulai. So, any shout outs and where can we find you online?
Well, you can find us on Instagram at MEDLY.NY. That's MEDLY.NY. Who do I want to shout out? Oh my goodness.
Your team?
Yeah, shout out to my team. I want to shout out Danielle, who runs Highlights. Nice. Natasha, who runs Pussy Weed, another really good cannabis-related lifestyle brand. I feel like I'm winning an award. I should have prepared some notes. But yeah, no, follow us on Instagram. We're always trying to amplify the people that we work with. So if you really want to get the info on the cannabis scene in New York, just follow our page for sure.
And that's MEDLY.NY.
Yeah.
And Skittles, where can they find us?
And you can find us at Ladies Who Brunche on Instagram, at Ladies Brunche on Twitter, and on all your favorite podcast streaming platforms.
All right. And thank you so much for tuning in this episode. Until next time, guys, bronche.
Bronche.
Bronche. That's how we say brunch.